The New Orleans Saints are long past the Drew Brees days, but they're about to make a comeback in a big way and are my pick for a surprise playoff team next season. You asked for it and we delivered. It's Fan Friday, and you, the fans, chose today's topic for Point of View. Don't forget to leave a comment down below and let me know which NFL team you think will be the biggest surprise to make the playoffs. This can be tough because people will inevitably tell you whoever you pick isn't a surprise or has no chance. But I'm telling you right now, the Saints aren't going to roll over like they have the past few seasons without Brees under center. During the entire Brees era, the Saints were never ranked worse than 12th in points scored over the course of a season. But their first two without him, they were ranked 19th and 22nd. And in that same span with Brees, the only time the Saints were below 500, the defense was ranked 25th or worse in points allowed. Not to mention the Saints haven't made the playoffs since Brees last season. But going into last season, they added Derek Carr, and while he had to deal with a ton of injuries, he still managed to start all 17 games and threw for nearly 4,000 yards with a 25-8 touchdown interception ratio. And with that, the Saints re-entered the top 10 in points per game. And obviously, that's not all Derek Carr, but he's as good as they've had since Brees, and he did a lot with his young wide receiving core and lackluster offensive line. And the defense picked up some of the slack and ranked 8th in points given up per game. You can win a lot of games with that. So why have so many Saints fans been freaking out over the offseason? Well, a big reason is that their cap situation was one of the worst we've seen in some time. They were $83 million over the cap, $30 million more than any other team. Here's what Saints general manager Mickey Lumas said when asked if the front office needs to change their approach to the offseason due to cap constraints.
I don't know that change is the right word, and I've said this to you guys before. Sometimes you have to look beyond the numbers, and you have to look at, okay, how many guys are under contract? What's the roster? What are your core players? There's lots of different things to look at. You know, if you're $50 million over the cap and you have 30 players under contract, that's different than being $50 million over the cap and having 70 players under contract. So there's just a lot of different variables.
Lumas has had to make some tough decisions since this press conference in January, but he has the Saints back under the cap thanks to a few contract restructurings, including a $28 million signing bonus for Derek Carr and saving $9 million on Cam Jordan's 2024 contract. That Jordan restructure might come back to bite them in 2025, but that's not something we care about right now. So with a little cap space available thanks to those moves and an unprecedented jump in the NFL salary cap of over $30 million, the Saints fill out the roster pretty nicely given their options. They extended Tyrann Mathieu for 2 years and re-signed Jonathan Abram, but their biggest signing was Chase Young on a 1-year prove-it deal. Young burst into the league in 2020 with 7.5 sacks and a Defensive Rookie of the Year award, but hasn't lived up to the hype at all since. If the Saints can get the most out of him alongside Cam Jordan, who also had a down year last season, they can worry about the future of the defensive line later and focus on the offense now. And remember, Chase Young can still make plays like this where he tosses the left tackle like a ragdoll and strip sacks Trevor Lawrence in his first game with the 49ers last season. So with some room to focus on the offense, the Saints hired 37-year-old Clint Kubiak to take over the offensive coordinator duties. A fresh voice can be huge for a young locker room. And with most of the valuable free agents already signed, the Saints need to turn to the draft to add to their young player pool. I think a lot of Saints fans would agree with me that the team's biggest needs going into the offseason were D-line, O-line, and the wide receivers. Well, luckily, there's a solid base already set outside with Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and A.T. Perry. Another pickup in the draft, and that's a group that could take the same path the Packers did this season by letting the wide receiver room figure out the league together. That, along with the departure of Michael Thomas, would be great for chemistry. And I think we know we can safely count on Olave and Shaheed to take a step, but Perry went under the radar last season despite showing some elite flashes. Take this play against the Vikings, for example. It doesn't look like Perry's expected to be involved, but the play breaks down, and Jameis Winston trusts Perry to make a super tough contested catch for a touchdown. Watch out for him this season, fantasy owners. And with 2 top 45 picks and 4 fifth-round selections, the Saints have a lot of options to build for the future. Maybe they make the smart move and take an offensive lineman with the 14th overall pick, or get crazy and trade up for a top wide receiver to secure that unit. Maybe somebody like Malik Neighbors? In any case, I'm not saying they're going to be world beaters anytime soon, but if they can hit on just a couple of selections, they are my pick to surprise the league and make the playoffs come January. And again, O-line is probably the smart first-round pick, but Neighbors would be a whole lot of fun. For more on how he could turn out even better than Marvin Harrison Jr., check out our recent Point of View. Enjoy the weekend, and we hope to find you here again next week.